Dzień dobry moi drodzy, znajdujemy się w Bazylei, w centrum prasowym, tuż przed finałem Eurowizji 2025, a ja mam wielką przyjemność porozmawiać z Florianem Widerem, który jest projektantem tegorocznej eurowizyjnej sceny, ale także wielu eurowizyjnych scenografii w przeszłości. Hi Florian.
Hey, how are you? Good to see you.
Good to see you too. Tell me please, how does it feel after so many months of preparations, of hard work, to see finally your stage coming to life?
I mean, to be honest, there are two amazing moments. So one, the first good moment is when you get the right idea and when everything is coming together from a creative point of view. And the second best moment on a show like this is when everything is coming together. You know, scenic is one thing, but scenic is nothing without the talent on stage, is nothing without the lighting, and it just brings it to life. And that's amazing, seeing all this coming together.
Are you satisfied after two broadcasts that we already had? What you see on the stage, is it close to your vision that you had in your mind?
Absolutely. I mean, I knew how it's going to look like. So if you take a look at the early renders we did and our design concept, it looks exactly as it was planned. That's one thing. But what I'm really surprised about is that all the creativity the delegations came up with in terms of their performances. So I knew what you can do with this stage, and I even tried to show them some examples of what's doable and what you potentially could do with it. But it was far over my imagination what they came up with, which is amazing because this show needs variety. It gives the show a certain quality as well. So there's far more than I would have expected, to be honest, coming from the delegations.
Which delegation, which act surprised you the most when it comes to how it looks on stage?
Well, it's hard to tell because I don't want to talk about any performances in particular because they are all great or less great. You know, it's always a question of taste, and you always have to see it in combination with the music and the artist. What's interesting is the variety, because this year there are a lot of very sophisticated performances to see, which was not always the case, which is also important in terms of variety. It means having so many different looks within one show. I remember last year was, for example, different. It was less props, more video. This year it's a little bit more interesting. There's always, every year there's a certain style. I don't know why and how this happens. This year, for example, we have no rock music or no kind of heavy metal stuff. As it was last year, there was always at least one or two or three acts like this, or Måneskin from Italy a couple of years ago. And this year it's very almost techno, dance heavy in terms of music, and the same goes also for the look and feel of the show. So a lot of performances are very graphic, and so it's nice to have this variety, and then you have other things sometimes just super simple and one prop, and it totally pops out. So you always have to see it in the context of the entire show, and how you know, if you see it as a show, not the single performances, how everything goes together. Well, now there is no surprise anymore. People know what to expect. They have seen everything actually so far. But this is important if you see it as as one show.
Eurovision is very big, very complex. How do you start creating a stage project for such a big show? What is the beginning?
To be honest, I know, because I did so many, the needs for this show are relatively clear, at least to me. So certain parameters. For example, I know that there's Eurovision always has a special energy in the room because of the fans. So I always try to bring the fans really close to the talent, and this venue actually helps. I know everybody would love to have a bigger venue. I personally like it, especially as it is, because it is compact. You have the people close to the stage. Talent doesn't look lost in the room and all this. So this has some good things, and usually, you know, everything looks a little bigger on camera and on TV as it is maybe in reality, which is also helpful in our case. So let's say the layout and how it works is a very early step. But these are things that you learn it over the years. So I just do it automatically, to be honest. When I start working on a show like this, I need like the first initial idea, and it mostly starts with, or the creative approach is usually, okay, I gotta find something that is attached to the country, because this is also how you sell a concept at the end. So when I pitch it, because they reached out to multiple designers, it's important that your concept, or in this case our concept, has something to do with the show and where it's taking place, with the culture of the country. So that's the first thing. Now, I mean, I know Switzerland well. I've been here a lot. Even have some Swiss roots partly on my dad's side. So I know Switzerland, of course. And I had certain images when I was little, as a child, when I was in Switzerland, that popped into my mind. That's the first naturally given input, actually. And so we have 3 creative ideas for this year's show. One is very obvious, which is the mountains. That's the easy one because everybody understands it. And then we have 2 more creative ideas. One is the 4 languages, and the frame in the room represents the languages, the 4 sides. And the other one is, it's called the Swiss Grid. Swiss Grid is based on let's say a graphic philosophy idea that's from Switzerland, and like everything can take place within a certain grid. Can be something organic, can be whatever it is then, you know. And I just like this idea in philosophy, so we came up with this. We turned it into a 3-dimensional structure that lives behind this huge LED screen, which is transparent, so sometimes you can see it, sometimes you can't. And the entire 3D grid structure is an active surface, so you can feature certain areas, and so you can do a lot of different things with it.
I think that when you create the project for the stage, of course there is a creative process, artistic process, but also you need to know very well technical possibilities that comes with it. Yeah. Is it true?
100%. But as I said, actually it goes along with what I just tried to explain. So I'm not driven by technology. I think the initial idea and the concept is far more important. And then in a second step, and I know what I would like to do, then I just try to find the right tools for it. And it doesn't necessarily need to be like the latest and most modern stuff. If you want to create an intimate, emotional moment, sometimes it's it can be almost like a vintage lighting fixture that gives you this exact warm kind of tone you're looking for. So it always has to be important, is always the idea first, at least in my world, and then you just try to find the right tool to make it work, or the best possible tool to make it work. And so to give you an answer on your question, yes, I have to know all the technical stuff, but it's not driven by the technology. It's more, and also it's about what you can do with this technology. They are just tools to create certain moments or certain scenarios, and that's the important thing. What's important also especially in terms of Eurovision, again, is the variety. So you have to come up with a concept and a technical setup that allows you to create all these different looks. And one of the secrets is not to use everything at the same time, because it would be a total mess. But you use some individual bits and pieces here and there, and just use it in a very, in a wise and good way, you know. So that's the trick.
Last year we saw kind of a breakthrough, in my opinion, when it comes to stage design, because the stage was so three-dimensional. It was different than before. This year we see something similar. It's also very multi-dimensional. Do you think this is the direction that we will go next in the future?
I don't know. It depends on who is doing it, to be honest.
How about you?
I like the idea if something has a more immersive approach, especially on this show, which is really, really nice. That's what we already started with last year's show. The entire thing played, it was a 360 concept, like we were shooting in almost every direction. So we had a kind of center stage scenario, not 100% center stage, but very center stage-ish, with this huge signature cube piece in the middle, or a kinetic cube sculpture in the middle. So I think what I'm always trying to create is like an immersive scenario. That was the goal for 2024. Same goes for 2025. The iconic piece this year is this frame that lives in the center of the room, which is something completely different. But again, it has a huge impact on the room, and we also use it for all these iconic moments before the performance. So it's a kind of signature piece, and I think a show definitely needs a signature piece.
If someone wants to become a stage designer, where should he begin? How was it in your case?
In my case, I started with music, actually. I was 17 or 18 years old, and I went to see Prince, or a Prince concert, and I was just blown away by his talent. But back then the show looked like a Broadway musical, so I knew from that day on, I'd either like to be one of these guys on stage, or I would love to create shows like this. That was my kind of my moment where from that day on I knew I want to do something like this. To be honest, it's more be interested in this is what probably is the first step. There are certain things you can learn. There are other things when it comes to creative process. If you get in a certain routine, it might be helpful as well. But the entire creative process, come up with ideas for new things, being interested, is actually the first important step. And you just have to, walk through the world and watch stuff with open eyes. So I describe my brain as a huge cabinet with hundreds and thousands of drawers, and I just capture many things, and then I open it up and do something out of it. This is my personal creative process. Everybody works probably in a different way. There are so many different ways how you could, whether it's, some people have a more architectural approach. I love architecture and I love design, but I wouldn't call myself, I'm the designer or I'm the architect, because I have a theatrical background. So my background is storytelling, and this is actually what a stage designer or a production designer does for a movie, or does it for a theater, opera, etc. So you just create an environment for whatever this story is, and this is my approach,
You've designed many stages, but also many Eurovision stages. If you could choose one that you are the most proud of, which one would you choose?
I have a few favorite ones. I really feel attached to the one we did in Vienna, but the main reason is because the process was so amazing. I was in Los Angeles, and then the director, his name is Kurt, he called me when Austria won Eurovision the year before, and he said, Florian, you believe it or not, we are going to win this. And I couldn't see the show because back then it was not broadcast in the US, and it was daytime and not nighttime as it was in Europe. And he said, we are going to win this, and a couple of days, and we got to do this together. So that was like, and I was like he overran me kind of with this kind of thing, because I was into something completely different back then when he called me. And then a couple of days later we met in Vienna, and had a look at the venue, the Wiener Stadthalle, that's how it's called. And after this, we went to a small pub next to the arena. Actually, the entire show got scripted. It was just the guy and I. We knew what we were going to do. We knew how this should look like. Like the entire thing was actually just very rough, but still, actually, the entire idea got scripted at this one day, and it didn't change till the very end. So the show was exactly as we imagined it, and that was a wonderful process. And the head of the network back then, Kati Zechner, she allowed us to execute our vision, and everybody loved it, and everybody was just so supportive. That was a wonderful, wonderful process. So that's why this is one of my favorite ones. And then I have I really like the one in Tel Aviv, because Yuval, who back then used to be the executive producer of the show, is a good friend. We worked together and know each other for many, many years. So that was a nice one too, and I think it was an excellent show. I know how much passion he had for the project, and I think passion is everything. You just see it. You see it on screen, and I think this one is going to be an excellent one as well.
I agree with you totally. My channel, most of my audience is Polish, so we focus on Poland, on Polish performance. There is a lot going on when it comes to Polish show. What do you think about it? And we've heard that this hanging part, this flying part, was quite challenging for the technical team. How was it? Could you tell us something?
So when it comes to your performance, I know this entire flying part was a complex one, especially to make it look great, so that you can't see all the technical equipment on one hand. And I think now it works actually pretty well. I don't know, if you got to tell me if the delegation is happy. I hope so. The other thing is what also makes it complicated in general. You can't hang anything in the ceiling. Means everything we are doing here, every light, everything just rests on a huge, massive truss grid that stands on 4 legs. The one or the 2 legs you can't see are behind the screen. The other 2 legs that carry the entire ceiling structure is hidden in the frame, so you can't see that it has actually 2 big trusses. That was one of the issues we were facing here.
But as a designer, do you enjoy looking at it?
I think it's a great performance. It's amazing because he's he's not the only one who is going to fly or up in the air, but I think it really suits the performance. I love the creative of what Poland came up with this year.
It's great to hear that.
Yeah.
I'm a Eurovision fan, but I'm also a Rammstein fan, so I wouldn't be myself not asking you about this experience. How was it working with such a huge band and so specific when it comes to their style?
Rammstein was one of the greatest projects ever, to be honest. What's really cool about them is they're a real band. It's not like, okay, there's Till. People always believe, okay, the singer is the important person. In this case, and it goes for many bands. U2, for example, is the same thing. U2 is not Bono, it's the 4 of them. And Rammstein is not Till, it's the entire band. And they all have the same voice, and they all, they're like a family. And it was incredible how they function as a family, like this initial brief, these initial meetings we had, we were always immediately on the same page. There were a few things I had to learn and to understand, which nobody knows. What is important to them, what is a little less important to them, how they see themselves. I did a lot of research, read hundreds of interviews to understand how the band is thinking. Rammstein has a huge intellectual approach as well in their lyrics and their songs. And I just wanted to understand how this is made. I knew that it's important. And then, it was fun. And we were actually, the way how it looks now was one of our it was actually the first idea. The initial idea was there has to be a massive statement in this stadium. So it can't be, and it should look different. It can't look like a normal concert. So it has to be unique and different. So this is how everything started.
I saw it live in Warsaw, and what I noticed is that it's so industrial, and it really connected. I felt like it's really connected with how the band is, and also with the roots of the band because of the place where they come from. So I was really impressed. So congratulations for that.
No, I think Rammstein is exceptional. It's a totally different world. And it was one of the biggest, probably one of the most successful tours ever. I mean, they toured the entire planet, and it's crazy. But it's such a good show. It's so energetic, and when you don't need to be a Rammstein fan to enjoy the show. That's the crazy thing. And I believe a lot of people who come and see the show are not necessarily like massive Rammstein fan, but I think this is a must-see show. It's just so good and has so much power. I think it's amazing.
Do you have any dream show that you would like to design set for?
I always try to avoid having dreams because then I'm not surprised by the stuff that happens. I did a lot of shows I always wanted to do so far, and I'm always challenged by what's coming up. And it doesn't matter if it's big or small. A small project can be an amazing project as well. So it's not a question of scale. It's a question of who is doing it or who you work together with. Is it nice people? And that's super important to me. I love to work with wonderful people. Always try to be nice to everybody, and super important to me to be embedded in a good environment in terms of when it comes to people and family. And I'm very happy. So most of the projects I'm allowed to work with wonderful people and extremely professional and experienced people. So this became over the years more important than just doing the biggest show in the world. Don't know. I don't have any goals in terms of scale, or this is a particular show I would love to do.
Okay, so I wish you many great projects that when you are after it and you think about it, you'll think that was my dream project that I didn't know yet. It was
I'm thinking of you. Exactly. Thank you so much
for your time. I wish that everything will be perfect on the final night.
Thank you likewise. Hope everything is going well on Saturday, and good luck.
Thank you so much.
To your performance. Okay.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you very much.
Thanks for having me.